Let's return to those May Day protests in Paris. Show you some live pictures from the city. Activists have thrown projectiles at the police. There's been a response of tear gas being lobbed. Hundreds of officers have been deployed on the streets of Paris after threats of rioting were spread on social media. We're hearing more than 80 people have been arrested so far. Many others search. But someone who knows more than I do about what's going on is Hugh Schofield, who is in Paris. And I guess, Hugh, I should say first, this is not confined to the Gilets jaunes, the yellow vest movement.
No, it's kicking off down in the Montparnasse region, which is where a regular May the 1st union-organised demonstration march is to take place, and where thousands and thousands of people have been assembling for the last couple of years, for the last couple of hours, the vast majority of whom are either trade unionists or, Pacific-minded Gilets jaunes, yellow vest members. Those two are all mixing together quite peacefully down one end of the boulevard, but at the top of the cortege, where things would start moving, are supposed to start moving quite soon, moving in the direction of Place d'Italie towards the east, there is trouble. And it's trouble because hardline Gilets jaunes, yellow vests, have been joined by black blocs. These are the anarchists, far-left revolutionaries who've come from France, but also from all over Europe, knowing that today was designated by their organisers as a day to make trouble. And they are making trouble, and we're seeing once again these scenes of urban violence, pitting them against police who are out in huge numbers. I've just an hour or two ago, I cycled through the area. They are out in force. And we're once again seeing the same scenes that we saw on the Champs-Élysées back in November, back in January and February, when the Gilets jaunes were out in force. But today it's more that the black blocs, this anarchist fringe has taken over, taking advantage of the situation which they knew would be propitious and useful for them, because it's where a lot of people are going to be out contesting and protesting against the policies of Emmanuel Macron.
Yeah, we are seeing pictures of huge numbers gathered in the squares in the Place, Hugh. And as you're saying, several different motivations for these protests. But what is it particularly about Emmanuel Macron's policies that's got them so riled up?
Well, I mean, I think you've got to differentiate between the classic trade unions here and the Gilets jaunes, and then the black blocs on top of that. The classic unions, for whom this is the day of the year, are trying to recover some of the ground that they've lost to the Gilets jaunes. Of course, normally, over the last 50, 60 years, it's been the unions who've led the protestation, contestation and demands from governments demanding more social action, money and so on. They've lost that role in the last year to the Gilets jaunes and the yellow vests in this very sort of changing, fickle, inchoate world in which we live now. It's these new social media organisations which have taken the lead in all of this. The unions would have liked to use May the 1st, today, their traditional day of rallying, to change that round and to reclaim some of the ground in this fight for influence. But they have to face the fact that the Gilets jaunes are much more motivated. They're turning out and infiltrating their own ranks. On top of that, you then have the anarchists and the revolutionaries who merge in some way into the harder line yellow vests as well. I mean, it's porous. I mean, it's not two separate groups. There are yellow vests who are trade unionists, and there are yellow vests who are sympathetic to the black bloc. So even though you start designating these three groups of people, in fact, the one bleeds into the other. And what they have against the government is that it's, from the trade union point of view, that they haven't done enough. They're threatening pension rights and so on. And from the yellow vest point of view, it's that they haven't given enough, that President Macron, despite 2 rounds of announcements in which he's given a lot of ground, a lot of money to the cause, to appease the protest from the street, they're saying he hasn't done enough, and they want more. But the government's feeling is that they have done enough. They've certainly given a lot of ground and a lot of money in terms of tax cuts, in terms of increasing people's spending power and so on. And they're hoping that these scenes of violence, which now seem to be almost invariably accompanying the Gilets jaunes protests, that they will turn a majority of people away from the yellow vest movement and allow the government to feel that it's got the upper hand in all of this. And in a way, the more violence there is, in a way, that serves the government's purpose, in a way, because obviously the vast majority of people in France do not support violence.
Hugh Schofield, thank you. And we'll keep following what's happening in Paris.